Hello, my name is Ashley Kellis, and I'm a Benefit Operations Specialist with the Group Sales Department here at OCI. Today, I'm going to be giving you a brief overview of our department and what you need to get started working with us. So, our team primarily focuses on the quoting and installation process for small and large groups with medical and ancillary quotes. We work with a wide range of carriers to ensure that your clients will have the opportunity to shop around and look for the best option for their group and their employees. So today we're going to go over what's needed to get started with that quoting process. Requirements are going to vary based on several factors. This can be things like group size, location, and individual carrier policies. It will also be dependent on the type of product you're quoting. So today we're going to look at fully insured versus level funded. Those are kind of the two main things that we work with here. Those two different products will require different pieces of information to ensure that you're getting the most accurate quote possible for your groups, because there are instances where we can get a quote for something with a limited amount of information, but providing the necessary requirements is going to help you get the most accurate quote to present to your clients that they would eventually move to install with. This is going to be a basic guideline of information that we typically need. More or less information may be required depending on certain circumstances of the group. So we'll go over that a little bit today. So the first thing to look at when we start quoting is whether or not we've quoted this group before. So mainly I kind of try to caution that as like if you've ever quoted this group before. So if it's a group that you've quoted with us and you know that we have all the information of that group in our system, perfect. If it's the first time that you're quoting this group, if it's a new client to you, it's pretty safe to assume that it will likely be a new client with us. So if it's a new group, we'll need the group name, like their actual name that's like on most of their company filings and stuff, as well as their physical address. That will help us get them set up in the system and also determine what region we're going to be quoting them out of. Most of the carriers' rates are based off of zip codes and like counties, I believe it is. So the more accurate of an address we have for that, the more accurate of a quote we'll be able to get for them. Carriers do have different rating regions depending on the county, and some groups might have multiple locations or share the name with another group. So it's important for us to have that information so we make sure that we're putting the quote under the proper entity. So first thing that we're going to start off with is quoting small group fully insured or ACA products. These products are available to groups with 1 to 50 employees typically. Eligibility numbers can vary to carrier from carrier, and we do have cheat sheets that outline those requirements based on carrier. And if you would like access to that, you can just reach out to our group sales department and we would be more than happy to send that to you. If your group is 51 plus, you can also reach out to us. That's a whole different level of requirements. So you can just shoot us an email, say that you have a group that's 51 plus, and we'll go ahead and get you set up with what you need to get them quoted out. So to quote fully insured products, first thing that we're going to need, one of the most important things we'll need, is a full census with all current eligible employees. The census will ideally need to have the employee's first name and last name, their date of birth, gender, and then any dependent information if they want their dependents to be included on the quote. And then home zip code. This will also help with ensuring an accurate quote on the group's eligibility. So if you don't have the group zip code, you might just want to like run it under the employees, or not the employees, I'm sorry, the employer's zip code. We can do that, but it's important to get the employee's home zip code because we can use that to determine eligibility for the group. So some carriers, for example, Medica requires that 50% of the group resides in Nebraska to be eligible for their Nebraska products. So if we run everything under the employer's zip code and then we get to install and it turns out that only 2 or 3 employees actually live in Nebraska, that would actually make them ineligible for Medica, and we'd have to requote them and figure out something different. So it's important to get that information up front so we can make sure that what we're presenting to the what you're presenting to the client is going to be accurate and something that they are eligible to go with. Another piece that can help us provide a more accurate quote is who is waiving and waiver reasons. Groups are usually okay with fully insured. That's not really something we run into problems with a ton, as long as the majority of the waiver reasons are valid. And valid waivers are going to be any other reason than that they just don't want the coverage. So like spouses coverage, parents coverage, Medicaid, anything like that. And if they just have other coverage, it does also help to specify what that other coverage is. And this is kind of just like the zip code. It helps to avoid any last minute problems at installation. And then, if available, current rates, benefit summaries, and plan selections if the group offers multiple plans. These aren't required to quote fully insured products, but they can help us to more closely match the group's current coverage if they're wanting to, like if they like their current plan and they want to keep something similar to it. Providing those can help us ensure that we're giving you the best quote that we can that matches what they've currently got. Fully insured rates are age banded, and this means that the rates are set based on the employee's age. So the rates won't change if the census changes for that individual person. So if you've got a census with 5 people on it and you took somebody off, that overall premium would change, but the rate for each individual employee that's still on that plan wouldn't change. That would remain the same. That being said, composite rates aren't used to illustrate the cost of these plans. So we've got a spreadsheet that we put together that'll show you the cost of what these plans would be if the group decides to go with them. And it will just give you the full premium. So if you're familiar with a level funded proposal, it'll show you the rates by tier. So like employee, spouse, family, children. Fully insured rates, we don't typically do that because it doesn't reflect what's going to show up on the bill exactly. It'll kind of vary because the composite rates just kind of take like an average of everything on that rate grid. So we can show them, we can put them on a spreadsheet. It's just strictly illustrative, and it's not necessarily going to reflect exactly what's going to show up on their bill if that is a plan that they decide to go with. So that's fully insured. Next, we're going to move on to level funded. This process is a little more in depth because groups go through underwriting. It's not just those set age banded rates. It is something that an underwriter is going to look through and evaluate the risk score for. So that's either going to be full underwriting or GRX underwriting to attain a level funded quote. So we've got level funded cheat sheets as well that are available that will outline the different group size and participation requirements that are needed to quote different carriers. Level funded participation percentages are a little more strict, not a little more, they're more strict than fully insured. Those ones are going to mostly be participation percentages. So they'll take your total employees and how many are enrolling, and like bare minimum, the guideline is they're going to more than likely need at least 50% of them enrolling to be eligible for a level funded product. Some of them, it'll go up to where it needs to be 75%. Some of them are 75% after valid waivers, and it just varies on carrier to carrier. So you can just reach out to us for that cheat sheet. It's a really handy tool to have on hand when you're trying to look at what product might be a best fit for your group. The most common guideline for level funded in Nebraska is that most carriers will need at least 10 enrolling to quote off of a census. So that's going to be your GRX underwriting. So 10 enrolling, bare minimum, but then you do still have to factor in that participation percentage. This does vary across the carriers. For example, UHC can GRX with as low as 5 enrolling, but then you've got carriers like Allstate that would require at least 20 to be enrolling to GRX off of a census. So if a group has less than 10 enrolled, but they still want a level funded quote, they can still do that. They would just need to fill out health applications. We do have a few ways to do this. We can either send you paper applications. There's a Nebraska uniform app you can fill out, but most carriers will require at least an additional form or their like company headed application with a wet signature install. A lot of different guidelines. We can also outline those for you. So those are the paper applications that you can fill out, and we can kind of help you look at what you want to quote out and figure out what would be the best. Or we have a system that we work with called Easy Apps, where we'll set up the group online. We like put in all the employees and their names and their dates of birth and everything. And then we'll send you a link and a username and password to pass along to the group. And they can go in and fill out those applications electronically. So we select the carriers that they want to get a quote with, and it'll populate those applications in there, and they'll put in their information, fill out their applications, and then we can use those to quote. Blue Cross Blue Shield does have its own application system separate from all of these. If they need to fill out applications to go get a quote with Blue Cross Blue Shield, it will need to be through the Blue Cross Blue Shield data hub, and we can help you get a link set up for that as well. So if the group is eligible for GRX, the census requirements are very similar to the ACA. It's a little more important to have as accurate of an enrollment count as possible just to ensure that they are meeting those participation requirements, because that is something that they're pretty strict with, and it can make or break whether or not the group is able to install with that coverage. A few other items that level funded quoting requires, these are just kind of like carrier specific things. UHC will require a tax ID for level funded quotes, and then their current rates and their most recent renewal. SBCs and plan selections are also very helpful to obtaining the best quote available, and I know that Medica is pretty set on wanting those SBCs to provide a quote. So it can just kind of help them see where the group's at right now and kind of see, it kind of helps the carriers come out with their best foot forward, what they can do to make sure that the group is getting at least the same or better coverage than what they currently have. As mentioned previously, we may not require all of these pieces to obtain a quote, or we might require additional information depending on specific circumstances of the group. If you're not sure about eligibility or have any additional questions, you can always reach out to our group sales team. We've got a great team here, and we're always more than happy to help you out. So you can just reach out to us and we'll get you squared away. So couple other things that I just want to make sure that I mention. Level funded quotes have composite rates. So each enrollment tier is assigned a rate based on their underwriting, not just that age. So at the composite rates, they're more subject to change if the census changes. So as I mentioned with the ACA, if one person came off of that census, the other employees there, their rates wouldn't change. With a level funded quote, if you had somebody come off of that census, there's a very real chance that those rates can change. They might not, they don't always, but I usually try to set that expectation that if there's a census change, it's more than likely that the rates will change. It might not be a lot, it might be by a lot. There's really no way to tell. So we always try to go into the quoting with the most accurate census possible to kind of avoid those changes, because it can be frustrating. So adding or removing employees from the quote census to the install census can cause the rates to change from what was quoted. So even if we move to install, so if we ran a quote on one census, you got the quote back, and then we go to install, and the install census has a lot of changes that weren't shown on that quoting process, it's very possible that rates from the quote would change to underwriting. That's typically mostly something that we see with just a few select carriers, but it's something that can happen, and it's something that we try to avoid. So that's a general overview of our standard quoting requirements. As you know, each group is unique, and there's always special requirements. So if you've got a group that you're not really sure about, maybe they have kind of an odd situation that's not typically seen in most groups, we're always happy to help. We have a great set of carrier reps that we work with that are always more than happy to help us find solutions for you. So you can always just bring them to us, and we'll do our best to find them something. And then I've got a couple frequently asked questions here. We will also have this in a printout that you can access to revisit whenever you need to, but I'm just going to go over them really quick here. So the first one is, how long is the turnaround time to get quotes? This depends on the time of year and the product. We can usually get fully insured quotes back in about 24 to 48 hours, kind of depending on how busy we are over here. Level funded can take a little bit longer just because we have to send it out to that underwriting. Typically sitting around 5 to 7 business days is usually how long we give the carriers before we start following up with them, seeing what's going on. Large group quotes usually take around 2 weeks. So those are going to be a little bit longer. For all of these, busy season and team capacity can affect these time frames. These are just kind of the standard turnaround times. Next question is going to be, where can I find the SBCs for plans? So for every quote that we will run for you, we'll put them in a quote spreadsheet. And on that quote spreadsheet, it'll have like the carrier, plan name. There's a plan name column. And in that plan name column, there should be a hyperlink that you can click that'll bring you to the SBC for that plan on the spreadsheet. And then if there's one in there, or maybe it's some random SBC for a group that you're newly working on, we can also head over to the carrier websites and try to find that for you. For what states we can quote in, we mainly quote in Nebraska, Minnesota, and Kansas. We can quote in other states. Availability, or our amount of options that we have for those states that we aren't primarily working in, are just going to be a little limited. We will have at least one to give you back usually. It's just not going to be as extensive in the ones that we've got in those 3 main states. Next question is going to be, what if I'm not appointed with a carrier or in a certain state? So let's say it's your first time working with Medica, or you've got a client down in Minnesota and you're a Nebraska-based broker. We have a contracting department that can assist you with any appointments. So we can help you get it quoted out, and we can usually look and see whether or not you're appointed in those. So if the group does decide to install with that, we can reach out to our contracting team, and then they'll send you a link and give you everything you needed to get appointed with those carriers and states. And then our last question that I've got here is, what are your most requested carriers? Our most requested medical carriers are going to be Aetna, Allstate, UHC, Medica, and Blue Cross Blue Shield. We do have other carriers that we work with. So if you're ever unsure, you can always just ask us. Those are just our main ones that we get requested the most. So that is all I've got for you today. If you have any questions about anything, feel free to reach out to our group sales team. Our email is groupsales@ociservices.com, or you can just call the front desk and ask for our group sales team, and we're happy to help. Thank you so much. Have a good rest of your day.